Every country has a past filled with creatures that no longer exist today. In this video, we return to a lost world from the Miocene Epoch in Patagonia, Argentina.
Lost world creatures.
The world we know today was not always like this. Once, all of Earth's landmasses were joined together as a single supercontinent known as Pangaea. It was a world where dinosaurs were only beginning to emerge. But over the millions of years that followed, Pangaea broke apart. The continents drifted away from one another, and the world slowly began to take on its modern shape. For millions of years, South America was a world of its own, separated from the other great landmasses. There was still no land bridge connecting it to North America. As a result, the animals living here evolved largely independently from those found elsewhere in the world. Millions of years ago, the land we know today as Argentina was a very different world. During the Miocene Epoch, the region we now call Patagonia was a land of vast open plains, relentless winds, and harsh conditions that tested survival. And in this region, one of the most effective land predators was a bird. But this was nothing like any bird you know. It couldn't fly, but you couldn't outrun it. This creature was Phorusrhacos, better known as the terror bird. Phorusrhacos stood over 2.5 meters tall, towering above the height of an average person. Even from a distance, it looked less like an ordinary bird and more like a small dinosaur. But its size was not the only thing that made it remarkable. Its long legs allowed it to cover great distances quickly. We don't know exactly how fast it was. After all, fossils don't measure speed. However, its skeletal structure, lightweight body, and the bones that supported powerful hip muscles suggest that it may have been one of the fastest land predators of its time. Its long, muscular neck helped it deliver powerful strikes, and its most remarkable feature was its massive beak. Many predators rely on the strength of their jaws, but Phorusrhacos was different. Its most effective weapon was this powerful hook-shaped structure. Combined with its strong neck muscles, the hooked beak was capable of delivering extremely forceful blows. Its large eyes, meanwhile, allowed it to detect even the slightest movement across the open landscape. In short, nearly every part of the Phorusrhacos' body was adapted for life as a predator. However, its life was not only about hunting. Every day, it moved through Patagonia's vast river valleys and open plains. Along the rivers, vegetation was denser. Many herbivores came to these areas in search of water. Beyond them, the open grassland stretched for miles, and the wind almost never stopped. Within this immense landscape, Phorusrhacos had to keep moving. Sometimes it followed river systems, sometimes it wandered across the open plains, and sometimes it simply watched for the slightest sign of movement. Because survival in this world was not only about strength. Being in the right place at the right time was just as important. It wasn't always running, and it wasn't always hunting. Like modern predators, it spent much of its time conserving energy. It roamed the open landscapes of Patagonia, observing its surroundings and waiting for the right opportunity. Because a failed chase meant wasting valuable energy. So how did Phorusrhacos hunt? The Miocene landscapes of South America provided a vast hunting ground for Phorusrhacos. Isolated from the rest of the world, this continent offered an abundance of potential prey. It was covered by broad open savannas bordered by forests, ancient river channels, and rugged open terrain. Across this vast landscape, potential prey was almost everywhere. Here lived extraordinary animals found nowhere else on Earth. Large herbivorous Nesodon, early relatives of the armored glyptodonts, giant rodents such as Prologostomus, open country Interathurium, the unusual Astropithurium, and the branch-feeding Homalodotherium. The Homalodotheriums that lived in Miocene Patagonia spent much of their day feeding. Using their long forelimbs, they pulled down tree branches and fed on the leaves. But in the open landscapes, even the slightest movement could be detected. And Phorusrhacos rarely ignored such an opportunity. Once a potential prey was spotted, the pursuit would begin. Thanks to its powerful legs, Phorusrhacos could track its prey across long distances. Most of the time, the Homalodotherium didn't even realize it was being followed. Phorusrhacos did not rely on speed immediately. It conserved its energy and slowly closed the distance. It was fast, it was patient, and it waited for the right moment. But now, it was close enough. The Homalodotherium finally sensed the danger and fled. But by then, the advantage belonged to Phorusrhacos. The predator accelerated, rapidly closing the gap. As the distance disappeared, only one option remained: run. One precise strike. The chase was over. And for Phorusrhacos, the reward was about to begin. And for millions of years, this scene played out again and again across the open landscapes of Patagonia. Prey fled, Phorusrhacos followed, and more often than not, the outcome remained the same. But today, we can no longer witness any of these chases. Phorusrhacos is gone, and so is much of the world it once ruled. All that remains are bones hidden beneath the earth. Yet these fossils tell us surprising things about this extraordinary predator that once lived here. The fossils reveal that the skull of Phorusrhacos evolved to deliver exceptionally powerful blows. Its thick neck, strong muscle attachments, and enormous hook-shaped beak were not only useful for catching prey, but also for delivering powerful and controlled strikes. Many of the bones that formed its skull were fused together far more solidly than those of modern birds. This helped safely transfer the forces generated during impact. Scientists believe that, rather than holding onto its prey directly, Phorusrhacos relied primarily on its beak as a weapon. Biomechanical studies support this idea. Analyses suggest that a single powerful strike could have been highly effective against small and medium-sized prey. So Phorusrhacos was not just a fast runner. It was also a predator dangerous enough. Interestingly, when Phorusrhacos was first discovered, scientists did not even fully understand what it was. In 1887, the Argentine paleontologist Florentino Mgina began examining a collection of unusual fossils discovered in Patagonia. However, the remains were incomplete. There were only a few fossil fragments, and those fragments raised more questions than answers. Because of that, these fossils could not be easily matched to any known animal. The recovered remains were incomplete. The fragments available at the time were not enough to reveal what this mysterious creature actually looked like. Scientists struggled to determine exactly what they were looking at. The answers would only begin to emerge over the following decades, as additional fossils were discovered. Moreover, the first fossils discovered did not reveal the animal's true size. Scientists only had fragments. As a result, understanding what kind of creature they were dealing with was far from easy. Over the years, new fossils continued to be discovered across different regions of Patagonia. Each new bone provided new clues about this mysterious animal. Sometimes a fragment of a jaw would emerge, sometimes neck vertebrae, and sometimes pieces of a skull unlike anything seen before. With every new discovery, it became increasingly clear that the animal was far larger than originally imagined. Scientists were trying to understand what this long-extinct animal had actually looked like, but the pieces they possessed were incomplete. It was like trying to reassemble a puzzle that had been scattered millions of years ago. With each new discovery, the picture became a little clearer, but completing that picture would take decades. Because fossils are more than just bones, the shape of a bone can reveal how an animal moved. The areas where muscles attached can indicate how powerful those muscles once were. Joint structures can reveal the range of motion an animal possessed. For this reason, when scientists attempt to understand animals that lived millions of years ago, they often work like detectives. Every bone, every crack, every surface mark is a small clue from the past. And when those clues are brought together, the story of a long-extinct creature slowly begins to reappear. For Phorusrhacos, the situation was no different. The fossils helped scientists understand not only what it looked like, but also how it moved, how it hunted, and how it lived within its environment. Eventually, scientists realized that they were not looking at an ordinary animal. These remains belonged to a giant, flightless, predatory bird. And every new fossil discovered revealed more than just information about Phorusrhacos. They also revealed new details about ancient Patagonia itself. Because these fossils did not belong to a single animal, alongside them were the remains of other creatures that had shared the same world. Herbivores, small mammals, giant rodents, and countless other species that lived millions of years ago. Evidence of animals that lived near rivers was found. So were the remains of herbivores that roamed the open plains. With every new discovery, the lost world of Patagonia became a little more visible. As a result, scientists began reconstructing not only a single animal, but an entire ecosystem. But the significance of the discoveries did not end there. As research continued, scientists encountered an even more surprising reality. Each new fossil revealed not only information about Phorusrhacos, but pieces of a much larger story. Over time, it became clear that Phorusrhacos was not the only giant predatory bird in this world. Its relatives had also lived across the open plains, river valleys, and distant regions of South America. Some were smaller, some were faster, and some grew even larger than Phorusrhacos itself. For millions of years, South America was not only a continent of mammals, it was also a continent of giant predatory birds. Yet these birds were not all the same. Some lived in regions with denser vegetation. Others specialized in life across open landscapes. They evolved different sizes, different hunting strategies, and different ecological roles, but they all shared one important characteristic. They had abandoned flight, and instead, they had become highly effective predators of the ground. Among its relatives, one of the most remarkable was Kelenkin. It possessed one of the largest bird skulls ever discovered. Its skull alone was comparable in size to the torso of a human. For that reason, Kelenkin attracted enormous scientific attention from the moment it was discovered. Even more remarkably, some members of this group expanded far beyond South America. Millions of years later, after the formation of the Isthmus of Panama, certain terror bird species began moving northward. One of them was Titanes. Fossils of this species, which reached a size comparable to Phorusrhacos, have been discovered in North America. This shows that terror birds were capable of spreading far beyond the lands where they first evolved. At one time, these birds were successful enough to expand across continents, but that success would not last forever. Eventually, not only Phorusrhacos, but the other members of the terror bird lineage as well, disappeared from the world. What happened to the terror birds? For millions of years, South America was their world. Vast open landscapes, abundant prey, and almost no competitors. The terror birds ranked among the apex predators of the continent. But no era lasts forever. Around 3 million years ago, the world began to change once again. The Isthmus of Panama formed between North and South America, and two worlds that had remained separate for millions of years became connected. Today, this event is known as the Great American Biotic Interchange. Over time, animals began moving between the continents, two worlds that had evolved separately for millions of years. New species were arriving from the north. Others were spreading northward from the south. Animals that had never encountered one another before began sharing the same ecosystems for the very first time. South America's millions of years of isolation was coming to an end. For the first time, the terror birds were facing a very different world. New species were appearing, ecosystems were transforming, and the balance of nature was being reshaped. Even today, scientists do not know exactly why the terror birds disappeared completely. There was probably no single cause. The climate was changing, habitats were changing, prey species were changing. For millions of years, these remarkable predators had dominated their world. But in a rapidly changing environment, they may no longer have been able to maintain their place at the top. Eventually, the entire lineage of terror birds, including Phorusrhacos, vanished forever. The world continued to change, but they could no longer remain part of that changing world. Once the unrivaled predators of Patagonia's open plains, they eventually became part of history. And with the passage of time, only traces hidden beneath the earth remained. These fossils tell us more than the story of a single animal. They reveal the story of an entire lost world. A world that once existed, but has long since disappeared. Yet its story can still be told. And perhaps the most fascinating thing is that the story of Phorusrhacos is not simply the story of a predator. It is also the story of shifting continents, changing climates, and life in constant evolution. For millions of years, it stood among the apex predators of Patagonia's vast open plains. It hunted, it survived, and it adapted to the world around it. But Earth never remains the same. Continents that were isolated for millions of years can eventually come together. Ecosystems that once seemed permanent can be transformed. And even the most successful species can one day become part of the past. That is what the story of Phorusrhacos reminds us. Because the world it inhabited did not last forever. The rivers changed. The landscapes changed. The climate changed. And over time, the creatures that lived there changed as well. Today, as you walk across the vast landscapes of Patagonia, Argentina, it's hard to imagine that nearly 2.5-meter tall giant predators once ruled these plains. Yet beneath Patagonia's soil, the fossils tell a different story. They reveal that this lost world was real. Phorusrhacos. Once it ruled the open plains of ancient Argentina.
Lost world creatures.
Every country has a past filled with creatures that no longer exist today. See you on the next journey.